Now this is a small tip I wanted to pass on. And anytime you have a carbon fiber part, well, we've done a lot of these, so there's some things really worth avoiding the pitfalls. First off, when you have a carbon fiber part, which is what this is the front fender of Vlad's Benelli. What happened is they probably, because this is made to be a track bike, they never put a finish on it. So what happens, it comes out of the vacuum bag, and this is a vacuum bag part, I can tell by the way the carbon's laid in there. What's happened is there's zero finish on this. It really had no finish for all purposes. And what Vlad had done, he had used it the way it is, and of course oil, grease, dirt, whatever got in there. And so when we went to refinish it, there's all kinds of little flaws in this part. I mean, this is really a rough part to do. So one of the things that I know has worked for me in the past is I've put on several coats of clear. In this case, we probably have a 6 or 8 coats of clear on this already, and just keep sanding it, but the flaws keep coming through because they're embedded into the carbon. And one of the things that I know has worked real well in the past, as I'm doing this, I thought I'd pass this on. Once I get it rough sanded, and I'm not going to be able to paint this today because of the weather and because I have my grandson here, but if I take ordinary simple green and just spend some amount of time sanding that in, these little flawed areas, which look like fish eyes, a lot of them maybe are fish eyes, but a lot of them are, they're bubbles in the resin and different things like that, this is not a real, to be honest, this is not a real high quality part. If this were going on an airplane, it would have been rejected long ago. And you can be thankful that the person that made this is not making airplane propellers, or somebody'd have no nose or whatever. But this trick, and it's something I might have shown in the past, I don't know, but you get these raw carbon parts and they just constantly have issues with what look like fish eyes, but they're not. They're flaws in the mold release has actually gone down into the carbon in spots where the resin hasn't picked up. In other words, there's dry spots where now instead of having resin, there's mold release in there, little tiny spots. And I've looked at them under my jeweler's loop and I've said, holy mackerel, no wonder this part was... Now I know why they didn't refinish, why they didn't finish this in the first place. They just sell it to you that way and tell you, well, that's a racing part. Nonsense, it's a cheap quality part. And I know Vlad, for one, appreciates the quality that I'm trying to put into this job. But the truth is, I try to put that same quality into every job. But here's the thing that really seems to make a difference. At some point in time, we're going to put more clear on this tomorrow probably, but just scuffing the whole thing up, using simple green, rinsing it with water, and no matter what's happened in all 5 or 6 of the coats I've put on here, each one has gotten a little bit better. And I know Vlad doesn't want to spend $600 to refinish this fender, because probably a new one is only $700 or something. Who knows? But it's beside the point. The point is, even if it were, it's our job to try to do the best we can to make all of these parts. This isn't really an old bike part, but we really would like to make it as good as possible. And that trick of using simple green, I mean, we use soapy water to rinse. Now, I've also used in the past, I've used SOS, that has a really strong soap also, but it's not as good as the simple green. The simple green is absolutely the way to do this. Now, I'm hoping, as the days go by, this is probably going to need 3 or 4 more coats of clear, and I'm going to sand it between coats. And because it's a focal point of the bike, I really just don't want to accept second best here. But what you're going to see, because I'm going to show the part when it's finally finished. So what I wanted to do is show it when it's half finished. Show what we did a lot of work on it already. But if you saw this part when Vlad brought it over here, he actually at one point in time said maybe we could paint it you know, black. Well, we can always still do that if we can't get rid of some of these little errors. But the problem is, like everything else in life, if you look at this real close, and sometimes as a painter you want to be able to identify, these are bubbles in the resin that weren't, when it's vacuum bagged, that wasn't done carefully. They don't have, there's no resin in there. Now, this side has some issues, but we're going to work on it constantly. Up here, and I don't know why they did that, they put a joint in the carbon fiber right here. But that is, I mean, look at how, I don't think that looks attractive anyway. And I'm not trying to criticize, oh, Mr. Benelli or whatever this is. But you know what? Sometimes you just have to look at a part and say, well, you know, they could have made this a little bit better. But that's our challenge, is if we can rescue it and we can make it even better, somewhere down the road Vlad is going to run into somebody at the track or on the street or whatever, and somebody will have this exact bike, and they'll look at his front fender and say, see, what I'm hoping they'll say is, it came from the factory that way. They're all like that. You must have just got a junky bike. Well, to be honest, I did that to somebody with the R1 already. I had taken mine and 2500 sandpapered the whole thing out and buffed it. It took me about a week. And then I went back to Motorcycle Mall and somebody had the exact bike. And we parked them side by side and they said, see, here's another thing. Look, there's a wrinkle in the material here. This is not a flaw. I don't know what the hell that's all about. How they even wound up doing that. But again, our job is to rescue stuff. We're like the rescue dog of composite parts. Now, no matter what, and I know we've amazed, Glenn's been amazed at some of the stuff we've been able to rescue over the years. When he crashed his Ducati and we fixed it without Bondo and blah, 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 blah. All that stuff is nice, but the bottom line is we are going to take this up as a personal challenge now to try to get as many of these flaws fixed as we can. In fact, I'll show you what's on my mind here. This is tomorrow's part. Tomorrow's part is the belly pan, which looks pretty good. Actually, doesn't look too bad at all, but it's got things that have to be addressed here. It's got to be cleaned. See, here's the thing. Inside, you're obviously not going to paint that. In fact, this is another trick worth its weight, since I figured the purpose of what we do is to share the information. Now, even if you took this part off of a bike to do an oil change, or to do a tire change, or to, I don't know, this simple green, don't wipe it off. Wipe it on and leave just a thin layer of it. I'm going to leave, this trick is worth its weight in gold too. Leave just a little bit of that simple green on there. No matter what you do. Now see, this, we obviously get some new towels. Now tomorrow when I come back to work on this part, that will have hopefully cut any grease, wax. I'm sure this bike has some wax on it. Or even if we were just reassembling the bike, after doing some maintenance or a valve adjustment or something, it would be nice that this part would be immaculately clean then. And all the dead bugs would be off of it, and all the chain lube and all the whatever. Yeah, there's a little bit of work on this. Believe it or not, this part, there's a lot less work on this part than there are on these fenders. Fenders are really labor intensive because they're focal points of the bike. In reality, you're not going to really see this as much as you're going to see the fender. But in either case, I'm going to leave, and when I leave this overnight, it's about the end of this session anyway. If you do this, and just leave that sit overnight, you'd be amazed. In the morning when you go to wipe it off and sand it, a lot more of the grit comes off. Now, cleaning parts, this is one thing. Cleaning and prepping a part, especially a carbon part where you're going to see every little mistake on that, boy. That's going to be labor intensive. Getting these little parts done to where they're as flawless as I can make them, it's just a question of doing it. And I don't know anybody that can just do this in one shot. This is the kind of thing it's got to be sanded, clear, sanded, clear, sanded, clear. 6, 8, 10 times before you build up that nice smooth finish on there. This part we're going to be working on tomorrow. I hope we can get, maybe even get one of these done. I don't know. The Bimota has become a real adventure. It's been a real challenge, and I hope when we have it done, Vlad will be really happy with it.